Greetings there, fellow road warriors. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to Rad's Guide to Project Zomboid, episode 21, Visiting a New Town. I am making a pretty decent amount of noise, but I know I'm in a kind of a low pop area that I've been clearing out, so I'm not too worried. Padded jackets like these are useful to loot. Okay, I think getting surrounded there. Because if you do intend to live for a very long time in game... Oh, look at you. You were having a little, You were visiting your lover in the middle of the day or something. If you live for a long time, during the winter it gets cold. And clothing that protects you from cold can be pretty handy when you're trying to avoid getting sick with, like, the flu and stuff. So I would not advise new players to collect winter gear, like padded jackets and toques and things like that, because you're probably not going to live that long. Not to, you know, but realistically, you'd have to regularly live for months, which is no easy feat in Zomboid, to be honest, for padded jackets to be worth it. But because they don't take up a lot of space, it's not a big deal to just nab them. So, I am still after... So let's just drive to the end of the block. I'm still after another generator if I can. Toque? Am I Canadian? No, I'm not. I just play a lot of RimWorld, so they call them toques. Because Tynan Sylvester is, I think, from Ottawa? He's from some part of Canada, I forget where. Manitoba? I don't know. One sec. Dog hair managed to get in my mouth. No thanks. Whoa. Didn't realize the zombies were in cahoots with my dog to try to ambush me. Now the game is pretty forgiving. Against a single zombie, and I don't want to demonstrate it because it would be really dumb to demonstrate it needlessly to put myself at risk. But generally speaking, if there's only a single zombie around you and you run, you usually, like, knock them or bowl them over and not get bit instead. Thank you for putting me down. This was my house. I had everything I needed, I thought. Okay, so it's a loot house. It's near the L section in the northeast, and it's the bottom of the L section. I think, actually, oddly enough, I already have that annotated, if I'm not mistaken. No. I don't. What house was it? My brain... yeah, I'm gonna have to check that again. So, it's just south of the cul-de-sac, and it's the L with the 3 houses on the east. Okay. I don't know if I'm ever really going to go out here, so it's this house. Got it. Might not be a stash house. I'm not really sure. The note doesn't really make it clear, but I'll hold on to the map. They're kind of fun to collect. God, look at that. That's... Huh. Someone had a rager and didn't clean up. I think, if I'm not mistaken, my weight is dropping. Yeah, so I'm going to eat half of my ice cream. Yo, zombie, it's an ice cream break. You gotta chill. I don't fight while eating ice cream. I've not really found a lot of magazines in the mailboxes. Sometimes it's a pretty good source of magazines. I don't generally find the really important ones, like the farmer or generator magazines in mailboxes, but often we'll have, like, something. But the magazines have been pretty empty this run. Oh, here's another generator. So that is the final one I'm looking for. I thought I saw something. Oh, they're a bit far out. Okay. Because yeah, as I'm sure you've seen, I don't like to go indoors anywhere unless the area surrounding around me has been somewhat significantly cleared. Because being inside of a building and having that building surrounded, bad news. Like, very, very bad news. So, I do not put myself in those kind of situations if I can help it. Making sure to have escape routes. Especially if you're picking up, like, a massively heavy generator, which hurts you, slows you down, prevents you from fighting, or reacting quickly. You don't want to be super encumbered and then all of a sudden have a swarm face to face. And yes, my character can put down half a pint of ice cream and lose weight. The game does have the concept of, like, nutrition, but it's pretty rudimentary. So, it has, like, calories, fats, etc., but, like, not really. And it's not something you'll see unless you have the nutritionist background, which is like a background trait. But there's definitely some foods that fill you up but don't have a lot of calories, and then some foods that don't fill you up and have a lot of calories. So just because your character's hungry doesn't necessarily mean, like, eating is a good idea. Welding rods are useful to collect if you intend to do a lot of construction work with metal. The metal sheets and small metal sheets are generally how you do metalworking, but, like, if you're trying to make metal walls or fences and things by scratch, you're going to need those welding rods. So they're helpful. Hey, Drea, thank you for the resub. I'm glad you're excited about some Zomboid. So we've hit, I don't know, quite a few of the garages around here. I do have the generators I was looking for, so let's get them set up. I didn't end up finding a car jack. There's other places that I could look for car jacks, though. So maybe I head to some of the other places that I think might have car jacks. So another one that might have a car jack, I'm not saying it does, would be police stations and firehouses in their garages. Their garages generally have some storage for car maintenance things. Ooh, there's kind of a swarm there. And because their garages are slightly larger than, like, regular residential garages, there's a somewhat of a greater chance for there to be, you know, car maintenance tools. Why not the houses? Because I'm not looking for anything that would be stored in houses. I am hunting for a car jack, and you're just not going to find car jacks in houses on average. Welcome to the stream, Jens. All right. Here we are at the gas station. And we haven't lost power yet. But when we do, the gas pumps will no longer work. So, preemptively grabbing a generator and connecting it means that, like, when you lose power, you don't lose access to your gas. Because if you only have one generator and you want to get gas, what you would have to do would be to uninstall the generator at your home, bring it over to the gas station and hook it up. It kind of sucks. I mean, it's doable in a pinch, but if it can be avoided, avoid it, right? Because it's not fun to have to lug around a generator every time you want gasoline. That is a right pain in the butt. So the second generator that I find pretty much always goes straight to the gas station. And the other thing is fuel it up. Because having a gas generator here is not useful unless it has fuel. But once it has a little bit of fuel, because you're then next to a gas station, you have a very easy access supply of fuel. So it's not something that I usually leave like a jerry can for. Because anytime I'm here, I never travel without a jerry can in my trunk. So and I will say that usually you only really have to fuel the generator up once, as long as you remember to turn it off when you're done. Because the fuel drain of these gas pumps is pretty negligible. So unless you leave it on, you can go a year without having to refill a gas station's generator. So there we go. The gas station is now ready to lose power, and that generator will power up the fuel pumps, but like probably not the building. The building's too far away, and that was kind of by design, so that if I do happen to leave it on, it's not going to be powering up like the ices and all the things that are in the loft of the gas station. Here we go. And while I'm here, I might as well top up with the tank. Now, one rather labor-intensive thing that, depending on where you live, it might be worth doing, is to build an enclosure for the gas station. It would take a lot of woodworking or metalworking to do, but anytime you're at a gas station filling up, you're kind of vulnerable. You have your back turned, your sightlines suck. And none of the gas stations in vanilla Project Zomboid like have fences around them, so it's just a lot of labor to box one in so that you can refuel off of them. Out in Rosewood, it's not maybe a big deal because like there's just not a lot of zombies here. But if I lived in like Louisville, in a big city, then it might become a better idea because, you know, in a big city you have big swarms. Oh, is the generator still on? All right, I'll turn it off. In a big city, you're going to have large swarms to deal with, and you don't want large swarms like wandering into your gas station. And as long as there isn't like a source of sound in your gas station, there shouldn't be zombies like attracted there. So if you remember to turn off the generator, you're usually not going to have like groups of zombies gathering around gas stations because they're attracted to the sources of sound, usually. Or they're attracted to, you know, seeing players or just passive sounds, like TVs and radios left on, generators. The generator sound attraction radius, however, is very small. It's something, I think it's like 10 cells or something, which would be like 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be like half the size or half the diameter of this parking lot. So even if the generator was left on... Oh, no, it's off. It's not on. Even if the generator was left on, zombies would have to be pretty close to it to be drawn to it. Character's getting drowsy, so it'd be good to turn back and do a little reading. And then also to bring the trunk generator up to the roof as a spare. So other things about generators that I may or may not have mentioned is they ought to be used outside. If you use them inside, you will become harmed by the carbon monoxide they output. The carbon monoxide won't kill you, but it will bring you down to the brink of death. Much like in being super encumbered, where if you're holding, you know, way past your encumbrance weight, it won't ever kill you, but it will certainly make it a lot easier for you to die. So that's one thing to think about, you know, that you're going to want them outside. So if you want to live in like a really large building, like a mall, you might need to bust some walls out in rooms in the mall so that you can set up a generator that won't asphyxiate you. So that's one thing to think about. The other is that if you don't maintain them, they can explode. and catch fire and be very big problem. So when you have them running, make sure to inspect them for their durability. Because if they're nearing end of life, I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe the way it works is for once they drop below half durability, there's an increasing curve for the chance for it to explode. So keeping them above half life, above half condition here, is important. Oh, and you know what? I should have fueled this generator up when I was at the gas station. I don't know why I didn't. That was foolish. Because it's empty, and I'm now going to need to top it up with these gas cans, and then these gas cans will be empty. Oh well. So, yeah, make sure that the conditions are full. And that, or at least above half. It does take a while for the conditions to wear down, and then if they do break, you can... It's actually very easy to repair generators in the game. Like, it doesn't require a lot of electronic skill. And you just right-click once they're damaged, and you can repair them. But that does mean that if you're going for a long road trip, you want to make sure that either A, your generators are, it depends on how long the road trip is, but your generators are fully repaired and fully fueled up before you leave, or B, you turn them off if you think you're going to be so long as that they will explode. Now, it's never happened to me, so I can't say with confidence, but I believe the way that fire works is that fire doesn't spread or anything unless you're like around to see it. And that's to save a considerable amount of resources on game calculations and the like. Which means that if you do happen to have some sort of explosion, you know, with a generator, if you notice that it has exploded and fire has spread, you can drive away from the area, like drive totally out of town, drive significantly far away, wait for it to rain, and then drive back. Because as soon as it's raining and you drive back, the rain will put the fire out. Because any zones that you're not in are like paused. So if there's a fire to outbreak, you can drive away from that fire and it stops the destruction that would be caused by that fire. And then you could drive back and, you know, while it's raining, and the rain will put it out. Currently in the game, fire is a really devastating mechanic because the player doesn't really have a lot of tools to put it out. Like, you do kind of have like a fire extinguisher and like, but the problem is if your character catches fire, you don't know, like your own character doesn't know how to stop, drop, and roll. So often if you catch fire, you're dead. There's like, you're on fire and then you die, or you get so covered in burns that you die. So I would say unless you know what you're doing or you're willing to die, don't mess with fire. As a new player, don't set things on fire. Don't throw Molotovs. Don't set campfires out on zero level, because if a zombie walks through a campfire, they'll catch fire, and then zombies don't die very quickly when they catch fire, so they'll walk around and set a lot of other things on fire, and then all of a sudden you either have a forest fire or multiple city block fire. It becomes it spreads very, very quickly. So campfires are okay to do when there isn't a chance for zombies to walk through them. So for isolated second stories and things like that. But on ground floors, yeah, it's not worth the risk. And I think, I could be mistaken, but I think they're planning on sort of overhauling the fire mechanics for the next major update. But that update isn't landed yet, so I think that's all speculative. But if they do overhaul the fire mechanics, then that tip there is obviously no longer applicable. It's just a warning. Fire spreads, very hard to put it out. And if you yourself catch fire, bye-bye. Most of the time you'll just like die of burns before you're able to put yourself out. There is a custom scenario, the CDDA, Cataclysm Dark Day Ahead, which is its own standalone game, but there's a scenarioing game that mimics it, where you start off in a building that is like you're naked, you're wounded, and the building's on fire, and the average experience of playing that specific Project Zomboid scenario is you die because you're surrounded by zombies, and you're surrounded by fire, and it's pretty challenging to survive. The other thing about this game, unless you're using mods, of course, the caveat is like mods change a significant portion of the game, is if you're on fire, you can't enter water. Like, there's no swimming in the game. So swimming pools, lakes, rivers, ponds, they're effectively terrain blockers. Which also means that if you're driving into water with your vehicle, you hit the shoreline like it's a concrete wall. Because there isn't the game mechanics yet for water. So if you're on fire, you also can't plan on jumping into... Like, you can't right-click a shower or right-click a bathtub or jump into a pool or pond or anything like that. None of that will save you. Which is, again, why water is so damaging. Because there's just not... The player isn't given the capacity to not die very effectively. Take it from someone who has died many a time while all set on fire. So at this point, we have all the extra generators that we needed. It's all laid out. One's at the gas station, two's on top of the base. So we're very, very well prepared for a loss of power, which is strange because it's almost been a month, right? You usually lose power within the first 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes even the first week. It's been 24 days, so it's been greater than 3 weeks and we still have power, which is unusual. But I did lose water on day 3. And every time you play, it will be a little bit different. So sometimes you'll lose power and water very early on. Sometimes you get to keep it for a very long time. Either way, it's very useful to prepare as soon as you're physically able for the loss of those 2 services. Because once you lose those services, I would say power is more damaging to lose because everything perishable will rot. Whereas water, you can kind of scrounge for and boil pretty easily. All right, this crowbar needs to get retired. I love them, but that one's way past broken. It has maybe 50 swings left before it breaks, and I don't want it to break in my hands. So I'm gonna put it away because I have plenty of spares. So let's see. There's a few different things we could do at this point in terms of setting up the base. So there's some skill grinding to be done. So if we take a look at my skills, I am still working on mechanics, metalwork, and electrical. So reading the associated books and leveling it up, I think is pretty reasonable. So I think the next thing I want to do is to level up mechanics, because electrical and metalwork just requires me to break down things, electrical things and metal things, which will happen in due time, right? I'll happen upon them. Whereas mechanics, I can read the book, but there's actually one alternative. And actually, I'm going to change my mind, which is to read the carpentry book and then secure the second floor. So the one thing that this base is missing is that zombies can see me through these second story windows. And I can block that. So what I could do is I could build stairs here that gives access to that Z level and barricade or sheet up that second floor, which is what I intend to do. I think it's pretty useful to have a base that I can't be spotted when inside. Because it's a small chance, but there's a non-zero chance that a random swarm kind of wanders in and parks itself right in front of my food mart and then spots me and rips their way into the building. And I can avoid that. I have the tools to avoid that. So that's what I want to do. So yeah, building a bit of a catwalk is the goal. So let's go ahead and grab the carpentry. Why is this reversed? Alphabetical. the Carpentry Volume 4. The other thing I can poll you on, because this will be literally the first poll of the entire stream, is whether or not I try to get extra videotapes for this skill grind. So I'm going to have you guys decide that. Should I seek out extra VHS for carpentry, or for woodworking? First poll ever. So if you're wondering what would entail if I did that, there is a few different options, but I've already cleared out the Muldra VHS. There is a VHS store somewhere around here-ish, but it's sort of in the middle of like a densely populated area, so it's not easy necessarily to get to, which is why I haven't gone for it. If it was easy, it would be low-hanging fruit. And then if I really wanted to drive pretty far, there is a VHS store in Riverside up here. But again, that VHS store is kind of in the... It's not in the middle of town, but it's not on the edge. So the reason I went to the Muldra one is it's near the outskirts, right? If the VHS store in Muldra was like here, it'd be a really different matter, because going to somewhere like there would be very, very hard to get to. The other thing that I could do in order to make this a little bit easier, I already have the skill. So the reason I want to read the book is so that while I'm doing the work, I level up more from carpentry. But if I had a sledgehammer right where that sheet rope is, I could break that handrail down and just start building a catwalk. Whereas if I don't have a sledgehammer, I can't break that down and build a catwalk. I'd have to build stairs to a catwalk, which is fine. I don't mind stairs to a catwalk. There's actually a bit of an advantage to that, which is that, you know, I can then have like my own weird secondary catwalk that isn't connected to my base. But yeah, so the other thing is, like, depending on where I'm headed for VHS tape, there might be an option to look for sledgehammers. So there are some easier to get to warehouses in Muldra, and I've already been at Muldra, where that VHS store was. Right next to the VHS store, there's 2 warehouses that might have sledgehammers, so that's not a terrible idea to do. And then if I go into Riverside for tapes, there's a hardware store in there, but that hardware store is a little bit harder to get to too, because it's right in the center of town. I think. Yeah, it's literally smack dab in the center of town. I just checked. But it looks like you guys want for me to go for tapes. So I think I am going to go to the campus, like the March Ridge area. Interestingly, I don't think I've ever found the March Ridge map. So, yeah, let me get to sleep here. Yeah, I don't have March... It's the only map I haven't found. March Ridge is roughly here? Yeah, like roughly where I have the VHS store, question mark. And, that's where we're headed. So other points of interest in March Ridge, there isn't much. Like if I wanted books, there's some schools and community centers. But I don't need books. There's some clothing stores and bakeries and a laundromat, but I don't need that either. There's a pharmacy or like a doctor's office, but again, I haven't gotten hurt, don't really need drugs. So there's not much else in March Ridge that I'd be looking for, in other words. But the advantage of going to March Ridge is it is relatively close to where I live, so it's not like an epic journey like trying to get to Louisville or something like that. I'm going to pack a little extra food. I might want to... I know I have some chips in my glove box, but I might want to grab even more chips to shove into the glove box. So if I get hungry, I have a decent supply of stuff. I do have some spare coffee, but I'll put another thing of coffee in the glove box too. I just topped up the fuel tank, so I'm pretty good on fuel. And I have a spare tent in the glove box in the case that I am away from home for a long time and need to, you know, pop a tent, like on a roof or something. Oh, I didn't have my crowbar on my back. Glad I noticed. So I kind of wish I was leaving a little bit earlier, but 10 a.m. is not terrible. So the best way to get there is to drive like I'm going to Muldra, and instead of going northeast to Muldra, I go southwest to March Ridge. And unbelievably, there's no warning about power fluctuations yet. So I have power for at least another day or two. Which is good, because my generator... The issue is if power gets cut and I'm not home, everything frozen gets unfrozen and really mushy and nasty and rotted. I could run my generators, so if the power is cut, the generators keep the stuff frozen, but I hope not to be out long enough for that to be necessary. So let me update the priority. Head to March Ridge's VHS store. So we're going to this main intersection, and I'm going to take that road down to VHS. So the VHS is, let me update my prediction. I think it's going to be more around here instead. Maybe even further back. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It will be pretty obvious when we drive. That guy has a crowbar in his back. Hey, I'm the only crowbar wielder here. Kill you so hard. Oh, that one's even in better condition than the one in the glove box. Sometimes it can be worth stopping when you see zombies, especially if there are not too many of them. When you see zombies have things that you're after. Big ticket item one would be katanas. I do find that zombies will have katanas or machetes on them. And they're rare enough that, like, as long as they're not in the middle of a giant swarm that's going to get you killed, it could be worth grabbing. But because there was only 2 zombies there, it was pretty easy to just grab the crowbar. The marks that I make on the big map do show up on the mini-map, yeah. But the mini-map is not zoomed out that far. The marks that don't get shown up are written text, like letters won't show. But everything else does. Oh, there we go. Power fluctuation is detected. So that means power will be lost soon. That was the dreaded message that I was expecting. So now I know, at least. We have... power will be lost soon. So that puts a bit of a timer on my excursion out to March Ridge. I don't want to be out here and lose power and have the home... all the wonderful perishable food that I worked to collect rot. It wouldn't rot instantly, but some of the stuff, like the ice cream, would become rather unenjoyable to consume really quickly. Are there points to check for sledgehammers on the way? Not really, no. March Ridge doesn't have, like, hardware stores or warehouses. I think the easiest place to get to for sledgehammers, there are some warehouses outside of town, like kind of rural warehouses. Those might be decent for sledgehammers if I was trying to go for one. Or the 2 warehouses in southern Muldra are not ridiculous to get to either, since I've already been there. But I don't have that high of a need for sledgehammers. But I could always, and let me get rid of that poll. I could always follow up poll whether or not you want me to do a catwalk or a platform. Catwalk being requiring a sledgehammer, platform being that I make stairs first. So I'm happy to go either way. I am definitely at the point of survival now that most of what I work on is going to be vanity projects. Some of them are going to increase survivability, like if and when I start a farm, that will give me access to fruits and vegetables after the power goes out. And usually around the time that I lose power, or rather, usually around the time that I'm like 2 weeks out from running out of perishables is when I start farming. Farming takes a pretty decent amount of micromanagement, which eats into your time. So unless you need the food, farming is less efficient than scavenging. And because I live in a food mart full of non-perishables, I have a remarkable amount of non-perishables stockpiled. Farming is not something that is really high on my priority. And then if you live in, you know, if you're making your base in a large city that has a lot of places to loot, you might not ever need a farm. Like if you're in Louisville, there's easily enough food there to last you a lifetime. So, and same with trapping and foraging. Some of what you forage is useful for medicine, however. So if you get sick or you get fractured limbs, there are some foraged medicine that can help you recover faster. But a lot of foraging is foraging for like berries and mushrooms and living off the land. Same with trapping, of course. And a lot of that will change next major patch because we're getting farm animals in the next major patch. So this information, I hope, will become outdated quickly. Because if it's outdated quickly, it means we got Beta 42, which would be phenomenal. So we took that southwest turn towards March Ridge, and the way into March Ridge is we're going to drive on this road for a while, and then this road will fork, and I want to take the northwest fork, or basically turn right, and that brings me to March Ridge. Thank you for tuning in to Rad's Guide to Project Zomboid, which originally streamed live on Twitch April 18th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow zombie survivors.